Hello everyone, my name's Alano and welcome back at my attempt at recreating Super Mario Bros. Using GameMaker Studio. In today's episode, we're going to finally add in enemies, starting off with the Goombas. But first, as always, there's a couple of things I'd like to change with the current version of the game. I've been playing around in it in the last couple of weeks, and I found there's a couple of tweaks that could really benefit from the game. Starting off with the controller object. Inside the control main, create event. This year we're going to change its name to setup simply, and we're going to put the setup code in here, and we're going to add in a code event, and this one is going to be called global variables, and here we're going to set up our global variables. For now, we just need one, so let's call it global.grav is equal to 0.3. And as you guessed it, we're going to reference to this global variable every time we want to use the gravity in our game. So, if we go into the player object, create event, we can change grav here. Actually, we can simply just get rid of it. And in the step event, everywhere we use the grav variable, which is simply in the gravity section here, see, VSP plus equal grav, we're going to change this to global.grav. And this is it for the global.grav variable for now. Now, while we're in the player's step event, we're going to go into the right and left states. If you remember, I added this here last episode when we added gamepad support. That is, when we press B, the max speed increases, making our player go faster. It works, but I'd like to tweak it a bit. So, first we're going to change it into the right state, and we're just going to copy and paste it, okay? So, if input.b is pressed, this doesn't change. We're going to do something, and else we're going to do something else. So, if we press B, our max speed is going to be equal to 4 this time around, and we're also going to change our acceleration to be equal to 0.08. And in the else, we're simply going to put these variables back to where they once were. So max speed is equal to 2. Was it 2? Yes. So max speed is equal to 2, and acceleration is equal to 0.05. Was it 0.05? Yes, it was. Alright, so copy this here and paste it into the left state, just like this. Control save. And this should be fixed. Next, I want to enable VSync in our game. I've been having some trouble with the screen tearing, and it kind of, well, it's bugging me. Really, it's bugging me. So, in here, in the global game settings, if you're running Windows, it's in the Windows tab. If it's for Mac, it's in the Mac, obviously. In the graphic tab, use synchronization to avoid tearing. As simple as that. Alright. So this is good. Next, we're going to change some collision box in our Mario sprites and in our bricks and blocks. All of them, absolutely all of them, is going to have a modified mask, manual, and we want to reduce it by 2 pixels from the left, and we want it to be 13 pixels from the right. Alright, so 13, I'm full image, manual, to 13. Okay, so do this for absolutely all the sprites. 2, 13, okay, okay. Mario stop. I want the mask to be to 13. For the jump sprite, we want it for the brick, like I said. We want it for the blocks also. Oh, not 230. Nope. Okay. Trying to go fast here. And there we go. Now that the game tweaks are out of the way, we can go ahead and program our Goombas. So first off, we're going to add some groups, both in our sprites and objects. So let's call it enemies. All right, and we want it to be just below Mario. Oh, no, we don't want to create an object. We want to create a group. Again, let's call it enemies. Let's put it under the player. And once this is done, we can go ahead and add our sprite. So it's going to be called SPR Goomba Walk. And let's edit the sprite. We want to add from strip. Here we have two images. We have 2 images per row. It's going to be 16 pixels by 16 pixels. There we go. Image 0, image 1. Don't forget to center the image, and the mask should be automatic, or actually full image. Great, so let's go ahead and add another sprite. This one is going to be called SPR Goomba Death. And let's load the Goomba Death sprite. Center the origin, and well, no need to change the collision for this sprite. Alright, now that this is done, in our enemy group, let's create an object. And it's going to be called Object Goomba. Before we go ahead and change anything in this object, we're also going to create another one. And this one is going to be called Parent Enemy. Like so. And here we want to set the object Goomba's parent to be enemies parent enemy. Alright, so in here we're going to need a create event, and we are also going to need a step event. In our create, let's drag in some code block here. And this is going to be the setup for our Goomba. First off, let's go ahead and add some movement variables. We're going to need some HSP. We're going to need some VSP. Also a direction. Let's start off with -1. And a max speed of, let's say 0.5. This should work pretty well. After that, we want some animation variables. So let's do just that. Animation, let's say state. Yep, we're going to need some state, and let's call it walk first. We're going to have both a walk and death state. It's going to be a simple AI. And we're also going to need an animation speed, which is going to be equal to 0.15. So that's it really for the create event. Next, we're going to go into the step event, and here we're going to write our AI. Like I said, this is going to be a simple AI, but it's also going to be the basis for all the other AIs in our game. So let's start off by creating a switch statement to switch before the different states of the Goomba. So we're going to have only 2 states. First one is going to be the walk state. Don't forget to add in the break here. And the second one is going to be the death state. There we go. After that, we want some gravity. And this here is essentially the exact same line of code as in for our player object. So if VSP is smaller than 5, then VSP plus equals global.grav. And we also want to check for collisions using our collision and moving script. And we want to collide with the parent solid object. Alright, so what is a Goomba supposed to do? It's actually pretty simple. He goes left. If he hits a wall, he goes right. If he hits a wall, he goes left, and so on and so on. And if we jump on him, well, he dies. So the first thing we want to do here is in the walk state. We want to make the Goomba go left. So let's add in some movement. And let's say HSP is equal to minus max speed. This way, he's going to go left. But how are we going to check when he hits a wall that he changed direction? We're going to use our dir variable we created in our setup here. So instead of saying minus max speed, we're going to say direction times max speed. And this is how our Goomba is going to move. We also want to add in some sprite control so that the sprite changes depending on the state. So let's set our sprite index to be equal to spr Goomba walk. There we are. And we also want to set our image speed to be equal to animation speed. Like so. Now that we have the movement set up, we need to find a way to change the dir variable so that the Goomba effectively changes direction when he hits a wall. So below here in our collision, we're going to say if place meeting, and we want to check our x coordinate plus our HSP, our y coordinate, and against a solid parent, we simply want to change there to its opposite. So we go ahead and write times equal minus 1. And that's it really. So if we go ahead and test this out here, it should work. Let me just add in some Goombas in the room. Say, let's add in one here. Enemies, Goombas. There you go. And before we add it, we have to give it a sprite, just so we know it is a Goomba. Save. And let's test this out. I'll be using the gamepad I just programmed in the last episode. All right. And there we go. This is working pretty fine. When he hits the pipes, or any wall, that is, he changes direction. Of course, now we need to find a way to kill it by jumping on it. So let's go ahead and add in our death state to our Goomba. In the step event, here we want to change its sprite to the death sprite. So let's add in a sprite control where we're going to change the sprite index to be equal to spr Goomba death. And we're also going to set the image speed to 0 for good measures. Is equal to 0. And here we're going to make sure that the Goomba stops moving. So HSP is equal to 0. Alright, so that's it for the death event. But how do we trigger this death state? Every collisions with the enemies are going to be dealt with in our player object. So let's go ahead into the step event. At the bottom here, we're going to change collisions to be wall collisions. And just below, we're going to add in enemy collisions. Alright, so we want to check if we are colliding with an enemy. So place meeting at our x and y coordinates with the parent enemy. And if we are, we want to assign the enemy, the instance of the enemy object we are colliding with to a variable. So var other, or let's call it var enemy, is equal to instance place our x and y coordinates and parent enemy. Now that this is done, we want to check if we are jumping on an enemy so that we can kill it, or if the enemy is, well, colliding with us in any other way, and we're going to kill ourselves. So for that, we're going to check our y coordinate. So if y is smaller than the enemy's y, so enemy.y, minus 8, because remember, the origin of our objects, our sprites actually, are in the center. So we want to offset the y coordinate. And we also want to make sure that the state is not death from the other. So enemy.state does not equal to death, not f, death. Then we want to do something. All right, so this means we are colliding from the top. Let me just write this. All right, now if we want to check if the enemy is colliding with us from the sides, we just write else and write our from sides code in here. In other words, here the enemy is dying, here we are dying. Now, what does Mario does when he successfully jumped on a Goomba's head? He squashes the Goomba and he jumps a little. So we're going to start with the jumping. We're going to set our VSP to be equal to minus jump speed. And since jump speed is making us jump pretty high, we want to divide it by 2. Now that we got the jumping part, we also want to make sure that the enemy dies. So with enemy, we want to change the state to be equal to death. Like so. And we also want to set an alarm. We're going to set alarm 0 to be equal to room speed divided by 2. Now the alarm here is simply the death timer, so let's add it in our enemies, and its use is going to be to make the object disappear. So alarm 0, let's add in some code here, let's call it death timer and say instance destroy. There we go. And this should work pretty fine. Let's go ahead and save and fire up the game and see if it works. Now we haven't programmed the side collisions yet with the Goomba, so well, he doesn't hurt us. But if we jump on it, boink, he dies. And let's add in more Goombas just for fun. Say in our objects here, we want to add in a Goomba here, another one here. We also want one here and here. And 3 here, just for fun. Oh, we jump on him, all right. These still works. Remember, we changed the collisions. And let's see if I can do a combo. One, oh, I missed. Maybe with these ones? Wow. I'm not that good at these games. And there we go. We have our first enemy programmed into our game. Next episode, we're going to add in the death animation for Mario, as well as lay down the groundworks for the power-up system in the game. If you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe. You can also leave a like below and leave a comment. I'm actually pretty responsive, so if you have any problems, don't be scared. I'll help you guys. Just leave a comment below. And also, if you have any suggestions on what to change or on what to do next, you can also comment on that. I'll be super happy to read you guys. And if you really, really love what I do, you can go ahead and check out my Patreon page. There you can support me, and well, it's really nice to see that you guys like these videos to the point of supporting me this way, and it also gives me the strength to actually continue making these videos. So, thanks a lot, and until next time, happy coding!